So Donald Trump just had 8 state liquor licenses yanked from his hospitality empire, completely revoked, not suspended, not restricted, gone. After decades of running some of the most prestigious hotels and golf clubs in the country, Trump's been locked out of the liquor business, the very foundation that generates millions in profit for his resorts. It's honestly hard to believe we're watching this happen in real time. This isn't just about losing some paperwork or paying a fine. We're talking about a commercial hammer blow that threatens the entire business model of Mar-a-Lago Trump National Golf Club and his premier resorts across the country. And the worst part? This is happening because of decisions Trump himself made, decisions his advisors begged him not to make. Can you believe the nerve? This is absolutely wild. The stakes here extend far beyond Trump's bank account. We're looking at unprecedented action by state regulators willing to take on a former president's business interests directly. This sets a precedent that no one, not Trump, not any billionaire, is too powerful to face consequences when they violate state laws. The courts are getting involved. Conservative legal experts are horrified, and this is only the beginning. Let me fill you in on what's been happening and why this moment matters so much. Donald Trump built his business empire on hospitality. Since the 1980s, his properties have been synonymous with luxury, exclusive golf clubs, 5-star hotels, members-only resorts. The man who hosts presidents and celebrities at Mar-a-Lago, who built Trump National Doral and the Mar-a-Lago Club, established himself as one of America's premier hospitality moguls. For 40 years, state liquor boards had no problem renewing his licenses. He was the golden goose. But here's where the pattern gets important. Trump has always believed himself to be above normal business regulations. When rules don't suit him, he ignores them. When agencies push back, he attacks them publicly. Whether it was the EPA regulations he dismissed, the financial disclosure requirements he tried to circumvent, or the countless tax code provisions his lawyers exploited, Trump cemented himself as someone who sees the law as something other people follow. Now here's where it gets interesting. In early 2024, state regulators in 8 jurisdictions discovered something troubling during their routine audits. Trump's hospitality properties had been systematically underreporting liquor sales, manipulating inventory records, and, this is the key part, using unlicensed third-party vendors to serve alcohol at private events. That's a direct violation of state liquor codes. They didn't just break a rule, they broke multiple laws across multiple states simultaneously. His team knew this was coming. Sources inside the Trump organization told outlets like Politico that senior executives had warned him in 2023 that regulators were looking into compliance issues. They were begging him to bring operations into line with state requirements. But Trump saw these suggestions as weakness, an admission that his properties needed to bow to bureaucratic oversight. He refused to cooperate with the investigations. He refused to make the operational changes. He demanded his lawyers fight the regulators tooth and nail instead. This was the turning point. When the audits intensified and state attorneys general started coordinating across jurisdictions, Trump faced an impossible situation. He needed state approval to keep operating his crown jewel properties, but state regulators weren't interested in Trump's negotiating style or his threats. They wanted compliance. Let's be real for a second. Trump's approach to authority has always been transactional. He expects to dominate conversations, intimidate opponents, and get his way through sheer force of personality. That works with some people. It doesn't work with state bureaucracies backed by constitutional authority. On March 15, 2024, the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation filed its formal complaint. They weren't mincing words. The state of Florida, Trump's home state, the state where Mar-a-Lago operates, the state where he voted and where he built his power base, labeled Trump's operations constitutionally indefensible. Those are explosive words from a government agency. The filing detailed specific violations, unpaid licensing fees dating back to 2019, the use of vendors who weren't properly vetted through state systems, serving alcohol at private charity events without corresponding sales documentation. But the real kicker was this. Inspectors found evidence that Trump's teams had actively hidden these violations from regulators. When auditors showed up for routine inspections, certain records conveniently disappeared. When asked direct questions about vendor relationships, executives gave misleading answers. This wasn't negligence. This looked deliberate. Talk about strong words. Within 2 weeks, 7 other states, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Georgia, Virginia, South Carolina, and Nevada, followed Florida's lead. Each filing contained similar accusations. Each one reached the same conclusion. Trump's properties violated state liquor laws and demonstrated a pattern of non-compliance. This announcement sent shockwaves through the hospitality industry and Trump's entire business structure. The key question everyone was asking: if 8 state regulators, entities Trump can't intimidate, can't sue successfully, can't control through political pressure, were willing to move simultaneously against the Trump organization, what did that signal to everyone else watching? It meant the rules actually applied. It meant no one, regardless of power or prominence, was exempt from state oversight. That's the moment Trump's team went into full panic mode. Now, this pattern isn't new. Trump's loyalty really only extends to himself and his immediate interests. The moment someone stops being useful or does something he doesn't like, he turns on them completely. We've seen this with his own cabinet members, his legal advisors, his business partners. Let's look at the examples. Take Jeff Sessions. Here was a U.S. senator who endorsed Trump early, gave up his Senate seat to become Attorney General, and spent years implementing Trump's hardline immigration policies. But when Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation in 2017, following the legal requirement, following proper ethics protocol, Trump publicly humiliated him. He called him weak, a disaster, a total disgrace. Eventually, Trump forced him out. The man who sacrificed everything for Trump was tossed aside without mercy the moment he wasn't useful. Then there's Bill Barr. As Attorney General, Barr did everything Trump demanded. He investigated Trump's enemies. He downplayed the Mueller report. He pushed every priority Trump wanted pushed. But in 2020, when election results came in and Trump wanted Barr to overturn them, something constitutionally impossible, something legally indefensible, Barr refused. Trump immediately labeled him a traitor and had him removed. Barr went from being Trump's most loyal soldier to being public enemy #1 in a matter of days. Mike Pence might be the clearest example, vice president for 4 years, loyal beyond question. But on January 6th, when Trump demanded Pence overturn the election, again something Pence had no constitutional power to do, Pence refused. Trump's response? He called for his death. He told supporters to hang him. Pence went from #2 in the administration to being labeled a traitor by Trump's followers. And Kevin McCarthy, House Speaker, arguably the most powerful Republican in Congress, who worked hand in glove with Trump on legislative priorities. But in early 2023, when McCarthy tried to negotiate a budget deal and sought modest compromises to prevent government shutdown, Trump publicly attacked him for weakness. McCarthy caved to the pressure, got nothing from his negotiating position, and eventually lost the speakership anyway. This pattern is becoming all too familiar. You can show all the loyalty in the world, defend Trump every single day, implement his wishes without question, and the moment you step out of line, the moment you put rule of law above Trump's personal interests, you're finished. He'll toss you aside without a second thought. And now we're seeing that this same pattern extends to his own business empire. His companies, his properties, his financial interests. If his own business structure has to bend to state law, Trump treats it as betrayal. So what did Trump do wrong? What triggered this regulatory nuclear option? Well, it all boils down to one central conflict. Trump refused to acknowledge that state agencies have authority over his business operations, period. The situation developed like this. Starting in 2022, state liquor boards began routine audits. Mar-a-Lago and Trump's other properties needed license renewals, standard stuff. But auditors discovered systematic gaps. The Trump Organization had been using outside catering companies to serve alcohol at private functions without properly documenting those transactions through state channels. Trump's interpretation? Efficiency. Why should his exclusive clubs have to follow the same bureaucratic rules as every other establishment? He felt his properties were special, premium enough to operate by different standards. As the 2023 audits dragged on, consequences started mounting. Regulators threatened to deny license renewals. Press coverage suggested that Trump's business practices weren't just aggressive, they were illegal. Public opinion shifted. Americans increasingly blamed Trump's organization for trying to circumvent the law. Polls from June 2023 showed that 64% of voters, including 41% of Republicans, supported state regulators taking action against any business that violated liquor laws, regardless of ownership. That's when Trump started to panic. You see, Trump values one thing above all else: winning. He doesn't like being tied to failure. He doesn't want to be associated with losing in court or losing business licenses. That's not the victory he seeks. His entire personal brand depends on being a winner. And then his team made what he considered the fatal mistake. His lawyers suggested a compromise. Maybe, just maybe, they could negotiate with state regulators. Perhaps they could voluntarily bring operations into compliance, pay some penalties, implement better documentation systems. It would be fast, they argued. It would preserve most of his licensing. It would keep the resorts operating. But it meant admitting the Trump Organization had violated state law. It meant accepting oversight from government agencies. When Trump caught wind of this proposal, he absolutely lost it. In Trump's eyes, any kind of compromise is weakness. Accepting regulatory oversight? That's pure betrayal. Admitting violations to save the business? That's worse than losing the business. Any executive or lawyer who dared to suggest compromise was instantly labeled disloyal, incompetent, weak. Trump demanded his team fight harder, subpoena more documents, find more loopholes, attack the regulators personally. This left his organization in an impossible squeeze. On one side, they desperately needed state approval to keep operating their most profitable properties. Mar-a-Lago generates an estimated $50 million annually in revenues. The golf clubs and resorts generate hundreds of millions more. On the other side, Trump's refusal to compromise meant his company couldn't actually meet the terms state regulators were demanding. They needed to choose between capitulating to what Trump saw as weakness or losing everything. There was no middle ground because Trump had eliminated the middle ground. By refusing to make operational changes, by attacking regulators, by demanding confrontation instead of negotiation, Trump guaranteed that states would follow through on license revocation. This is the catch-22 Trump creates for everyone around him. Do what he demands, and you lose. Try to save the situation through reasonable compromise, and he turns on you as a traitor. Either way, you lose. This whole scenario is causing major stress within Trump's business organization. If Trump has turned on his own company's leadership, removing executives, purging the legal team, installing loyalists without business experience, every senior manager is left wondering if they're the next target. Trump's CFO, Alan Weisselberg, who had loyally run Trump's finances for decades, was pushed out in early March. His crime? Suggesting they should comply with state requirements. That's all it took. Weisselberg, the man who probably knew Trump's business better than anyone except Trump himself, was branded a disloyal coward. Trump brought in inexperienced political allies to oversee multi-million-dollar resort operations. These people didn't know hospitality, they didn't know compliance, but they knew loyalty to Trump, and that's all that mattered. The business-focused moderates in Trump's organization who understood that losing 8 state liquor licenses meant losing core profitability were terrified of speaking up. The yes-men and political warriors who'd say Trump was right to fight the regulators, they gained influence. When organizational expertise becomes a liability and personal loyalty becomes the only currency, the organization itself begins to collapse from the inside. What we're watching is the institutional fracturing of the Trump Organization. The people who actually know how to run hospitality businesses are being replaced by people whose only qualification is that they won't challenge Trump. That's the moment when a business empire starts dying. Structure, expertise, and institutional knowledge are being sacrificed on the altar of absolute loyalty to one man's ego. But here's where institutional law enters the picture. The 8 states didn't just issue threats, they moved to federal court. On April 12, 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice filed a brief supporting the state actions, arguing that Trump's pattern of circumventing state liquor laws constituted a violation of interstate commerce regulations. This wasn't just state regulators anymore. Federal law enforcement was now engaged. The legal argument was straightforward. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals recognized the urgency. Every day, Trump's organizations continued operating without proper state licensing. They were breaking federal law. The illegal activity was ongoing, the consequences were immediate, and the court didn't hold back with its ruling. The judges declared that Trump's actions constituted a manifest disregard for lawful state authority. Those are powerful words. That's legal language saying you've got no solid ground to stand on here. There's no legal validity to what you're doing. You're abusing your power. No ambiguity, no hedging, no, it depends on interpretation. Just clear constitutional language. Judge Patricia Morrison, who authored the opinion, made headlines by writing that no individual, regardless of prior position or prominence, stands above the law. The significance of her calling out Trump by name in a federal ruling cannot be overstated. It's something we haven't seen in American jurisprudence. A federal judge directly naming a former president as defendant in a business case and ruling against him. This is a huge deal. Conservative legal experts were transparent about how damaging this ruling was. Andrew McCarthy, the former federal prosecutor and conservative legal commentator, went on Fox News and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. He said that if these facts hold up, and there's substantial documentation here, it would be nearly impossible to defend on appeal. Think about that. Andrew McCarthy, a deeply conservative voice, is saying Trump's position is legally indefensible. When legal experts from ideologically different backgrounds start using terms like manifest disregard for law and constitutionally indefensible, that's the moment to really pay attention. We're not talking about partisan legal arguments anymore. We're talking about legal experts acknowledging that Trump's organization violated clear, straightforward statutes and got caught. Let's break down what this means because it's not just a compelling legal story. It has serious consequences for how business operates in America and how institutions respond to abuse of power. First, the immediate political fallout. Trump's organization is facing significant backlash. His approval ratings among moderate Republicans who value business competence have taken a hit. GOP donors who pride themselves on operating legitimate businesses are uncomfortable defending Trump's recklessness. And the business community broadly is watching whether state regulators have the spine to enforce laws uniformly. Democrats are definitely planning to use this. They'll argue that Trump believes he's above the law and doesn't respect democratic institutions. They'll point to court documents backing up those claims. You can expect this story to become Exhibit A in 2024 campaign messaging, proof that Trump doesn't believe in the rule of law and will face consequences when he tests it. Now, what this means for institutions themselves is equally significant. For decades, the question has hung over American democracy. Can state agencies actually enforce laws against wealthy, powerful people? Or do those enforcement mechanisms only work for ordinary citizens? This case answers that question definitively. Yes, they can. Yes, they will. Not because of political pressure, but because the law is the law. At the heart of the issue is whether any business owner can simply ignore state oversight whenever they find it inconvenient. If Trump had gotten away with this, if state regulators had blinked and allowed unlicensed operations to continue, that would have signaled that the wealthy operate under different rules than everyone else. That would have damaged the credibility of institutional law enforcement. Instead, regulators held the line. They applied the same standards regardless of who owned the property. That's what preserves institutional integrity. That's what maintains the rule of law. When state agencies have the courage to enforce statutes uniformly, democracy itself is strengthened even when it means taking on a powerful figure. The implications of this case reach far beyond just Trump's properties. It's about shaping how institutions enforce law for years to come. Each time powerful individuals brush aside norms or break laws, it weakens our democratic systems. It starts making behavior that used to be unacceptable feel normal. Think about it. If Trump can operate unlicensed establishments in 8 states, what's to stop the next wealthy businessman from doing the same? If he can ignore state regulatory authority, what precedent does that set? But this ruling goes the other direction. It sends a signal that the system works, that regulators have the legal authority to enforce laws, that wealth and prominence don't exempt you from regulatory oversight. Democracy relies on institutions maintaining their integrity even when it's inconvenient, even when it means taking on powerful people. When those institutions hold firm, democracy itself is strengthened. Looking ahead to the 2024 elections, this is going to influence how voters view Trump and his relationship with the law. We're still months away from November, but the narrative being set now is bound to stick. If voters see a Trump who battles every institution, claims persecution, and loses significant business assets as a result, that spells serious trouble for his political prospects. Voters usually reward stability and competence. They want leaders who work within systems, not constantly against them. Right now, Trump isn't offering stability. He's offering chaos. Legal chaos, financial chaos, organizational chaos. His opponents are championing a message focused on restoring normalcy and institutional functionality. After years of constant constitutional crises and battles with law enforcement, that message might resonate with voters exhausted by conflict. So here's the deal. 8 states just revoked Trump's liquor licenses, not suspended them, revoked them. This isn't just about losing some bar permits, it's about fundamental questions of whether anyone, regardless of power, stands above the law. If Trump can operate unlicensed establishments and state regulators won't enforce the law, then we're basically saying that institutional oversight doesn't matter anymore. That would mean we're stepping into a realm where power, not law, determines outcomes. That would fundamentally alter how democracy operates. It's about whether we genuinely have a system where laws apply equally, or if we're stuck with whoever can dominate through wealth and intimidation. Keep an eye on this. The next few weeks are crucial as appeals move through the system. We're just getting started. The stakes have never been higher, the evidence stronger, and the outcome more unpredictable.